I get to speak to a lot of property investors and landlords in my line of work, and one of the things that always surprises me is how reluctant landlords are to put up their rents. So one of the most cited reasons is that why would you ever put up rent for a good tenant? And whilst I can kind of sympathise with this to a certain extent, and there's a number of reasons why I think it's really important that landlords should at least review their rents on an annual basis and increase them gradually, little and often. Some rental properties, if you get a good family in there, a tenant could stay for easily a decade, and it might be 10 years before you've increased the rents, meaning you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So here's some of the reasons why I think it's really important that you should review your rents at least annually to increase them at least in line with inflation. So the first thing is, you're running a business. It's not a hobby, and it's definitely not a charity. You're in the business to make money from rental profits and also from the increase in value of your properties over time through capital appreciation. So one of these things you can count on with some certainty, and that's rental income. Capital appreciation you should just use more of a bonus. It's nice if you have it, but you can't really rely on it. Rental income is something though that you can almost guarantee. As long as you do your due diligence on your tenants and you look after them, they should usually pay the rent on time. Okay, the next thing to talk about is inflation. We're currently experiencing levels of higher than usual inflation. The Bank of England is predicting inflation to reach 7% for this year. And you probably notice it when you're paying your suppliers that things are getting more expensive. So probably the amount you'd pay on a refurbishment has probably gone up significantly. I would say probably more than 7% over the last year or so. And who knows how high it's going to get. Your other suppliers as well are increasing their prices, and so therefore it's really important that you're reviewing your rents to make sure that you can afford to stay in business going forward. So another issue you might have is it's all very well you give a long-term tenant a good deal by setting their rent at below market rents, but what you can actually create is a situation where that tenant is unable to leave your property and move elsewhere. Say for example they get a new job, it'll be a real shock to them because they're used to paying at this below market rents, and all of a sudden if they try to move somewhere else, say for example they need a bigger property because they have a growing family or they have a new job which requires them to move to a different part of the country, it might be that they simply can't afford to because they've become so used to paying this low level of rent. So actually in the long term you might not be helping them out by keeping it so low. The private rental sector is being hit by waves of new regulation that's been introduced every year. It's going to mean that going forward, you're going to have money set aside to pay for new things. For example, to get your energy performance certificates up to the required standard. If you've got properties which are below an EPC rating of C, you're going to have to spend money to get them up to the new standard. Therefore, if you're keeping your rents below the market rates, then it's going to make it difficult for you to set aside this extra cash which you're going to need to reinvest in your business. And as landlords, we've also been hit by the requirement to have electrical installation certificates for our properties. Certainly from my experiences, for some of the properties, particularly the older ones, that's involved investing quite a lot of money up front to get them up to a standard. So that's just some of the reasons why I think it's really important that you at least consider reviewing your rents on an annual basis. If you're not reviewing them annually and increasing them with inflation, then you are leaving money on the table.